back again. It's a
What's up?
awesome Tuesday here. We got my man Chris Simmons and Dave Wowchuk in the expert interrogation hot seat. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing?
Great.
Doing good, man. Nice day down here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Little breezy, a little bit chilly, but I don't have my jacket today, so that's good. It's been jacket weather for about 2 months here, which is pretty abnormal for Southeast Tennessee.
Brother, you don't know what cold is. You come to Winnipeg, Canada, and it's minus 45 Celsius on a warm day, and we'll see.
No, thank you.
We'll see.
No, thank you. Keep that up there.
That's awesome. Well, hey, guys.
So we've got yeah, go for it.
Yeah, real quick, guys, and we're going to turn this over to Chris and Dave promotes this because Dave is Chris's buddy or vice versa. And so we just want to welcome everybody on the call today. There's a lot of people in guest mode right now, as there usually is when we start the call. If you guys want to interact in the chat, just go up to the chat and type there, or, in the second half of the show, we take your questions. And so you'll do that right below Chris with the submit a question. But to do that, you're going to have to be logged in, so you can't be in guest mode. But when you try to do it, you'll just be prompted. You can log in via Facebook or Twitter, and then you'll be good to go. And so we're excited about this talk today because we're going to be talking a lot about freelancing and balancing. I know there's some guys on the call who've been struggling with that or wondering whether or not they should just do freelance work or they should just do the production work or they should do both. So Dave's going to be great about that. We're also, guys, we're giving away a GoPro. So if you're on the Expert Interrogation website, right above this, you'll be able to click and you'll submit your entry into that. We'll give that away on one of the future calls here at the end of the month, and we'll announce that. And finally, createinsights.com. I got my hat on today. That's where me and my Chris, we have an awesome site over there where you guys get a lot of free content on helping take your your video production company to the next level. So be sure to check that out, and here we go.
Man, we've got like 1 million people in guest mode. You guys got to log in, man, so you can interact and ask questions as this call goes forward. So, I met Dave. Dave, I'm not even sure how we met. It probably was through Facebook or something, forever. It seems like a long time ago. And I know since then, I think I had a website issue, and I put it on, Facebook asking a question, and Dave said, hey, I can help you fix that. And so he helped me fix it, and it was awesome. And then that kind of kept us talking even more. And I think at one point, maybe in the last year, like, hey, I've got this proposal, I'm writing for this company. Is there anything you can do? And it's like, hey, here's one I just wrote and signed, check that out and see if that works for you. And so it's been awesome to sort of use this, the interwebs, as you would say, to be able to develop these kind of relationships and reach out and help each other. Really cool. So it's really been cool, Dave. And I say all the time, like, my name to me is just boring, Chris Simmons. I wish that it was just like, it's like Dave Wowchuk. I mean, when somebody says that name or reads it, it's like, I need to meet that guy. That guy sounds really awesome. Yeah, plus, he does sound really awesome.
But you could be like Gene Simmons,
But see, that's already been done. That's already been done.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, I can't duplicate that. I mean, I am as tall as he is, but I'm not Israeli, and and I don't have $100 million. But anyway, so basically, Dave, let's get started with this. Just walk us through kind of your background in the industry, how you got started, and kind of, from then up until what you're doing now.
Well, first of all, thanks a lot for having me on. And it's kind of, you kind of feel humbled when somebody asks you to come on and puts you on something called an expert interrogation. You're like, feeling a little hot and bothered about it, but, whatever. Yeah, my history, 1996. 1996 is actually when I got my start into the video production industry, and it was more actually by fluke. My brother used to rent some studio space from a local religious broadcaster. They had a nationally televised show, and he rented out one of their studio spaces. And one day when he was there, I was visiting him having lunch. One of the parts of his rent agreement was that he helped out and volunteered to do camera for them for this 1-hour live show. So one day they came in, they said, hey, we don't have a camera 3 operator and we need somebody to fill in. They're like, Dave, do you want to do camera? And I'm like, I've never touched a camera before, nothing, ever. And so they said, well, no problem. We'll show you what to do. And I'm like, okay. So they take me into the studio, and it's like 5 minutes before air. I've never touched the camera. They're like, here's the zoom control, here's the focus control, keep them in the frame, and we're live. That was it. And it was after that was nothing but a bunch of, an hour's worth of sweating and panic. But I had a good director who took me through it, took me through the process. And at the end of that, I sat there and thought, you know what? This is actually really cool. It was a neat experience, and it just began to stir up some interest in the video production industry. And then I think it was just shortly thereafter I was called by one of the guys who was the editor for this show. He had his own video production company, and he says, hey, do you want to join us and help out on a shoot? And the funny thing is, Chris, my very first corporate shoot was in your hometown of Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Oh, no way. That's cool.
Came to shoot a video for a trucking company that was in Chattanooga, and they had some offices down in Georgia. And we traveled down there, spent a week shooting, just immersed in it. And again, it was just one of these cool things, hanging out with a Betacam, hanging out of the side of a van going 90 miles an hour down the highway, things you're not supposed to do. Stuff like that, just different little experiences. Getting a chance to volunteer with my local church. They had a television program, volunteered with them. Just one thing after another. Different little opportunities that would come up. And I said, you know what, hey, I want to learn, I'll try it. But I think my first big break came, I was working for a nonprofit for their in-house production department, and I decided to check out, and I went and started my own company. And I was sharing with Michael a little bit, kind of what happened was there was a feature film was being shot here in the city, and I heard about it, and so I contacted a local film office, and I said, hey, is there any chance of getting on as an observer for the show? And they're like, well, no, there isn't really, but the director or the director of photography is looking for an assistant. And I thought maybe, maybe would you qualify? Like, do you have any experience with Photoshop? And I'm like, Photoshop? Yeah, I come from a background of print graphics. So they said, send in your resume, and we'll see where it goes. So I emailed my resume and sent over, and about 15 minutes later, I got a phone call from the production manager saying, can you come meet with the director of photography in like 20 minutes? And I'm like, yeah, okay, sure. So I had to drive halfway across the city, and I got there, sat in a room by myself, kind of like me being in a police interrogation room alone. Director of photography comes in, sits down, and says, what are you doing here? Like, why are you here? And I said, well, I'd like to learn. I'd like to learn, kind of get into the film industry and learn more about it. And he basically just turned around and said to me, he says, you could shoot this. With your experience and your resume, he says, you could be shooting this feature. Like, why? And I said, I just want to learn. I kept on reiterating it to him. He says, you know what? If you really want to do it, you can come as my assistant. I'll show you everything I know. And I'm like, score. And he says, but it's only going to be like $9 an hour. And here I am used to making $50 or $75 an hour doing what I do. And I'm like,
man.
I'm like, $9 an hour? Oh, So anyways, first day of shooting rolls around, second day of shooting, things are going on. It's just awesome. Great experience. And about 3 or 4 days in, he says, you know what, we want to bring you into the camera department. And so they made me a second assistant cameraman, and my wage went from $9 an hour to $28.50 an hour in a matter of 3 days. And then I spent the entire 30 days working on this feature and got to learn a lot about the industry. Got to star in the show for a little bit, a little cameo. And then from there, it just began to, other opportunities would show up. There was another feature film I got to work on as a loader. Another local production company did a lot of documentary television. And they asked me to come on board, and I was working with them, did about 4 or 5 documentaries with them. And at the same time, I was still doing my own corporate work. I was shooting for other production companies. And it just snowballed. And it just kept on going. And now, 17 years later, here's where I am.
That's awesome, man. Well, and I often tell a story of kind of how I got started. And I'm not going to tell a long story, but, I got hired as a production assistant really just as a favor to a friend at a big Sam's Club gig in Greenville, South Carolina, many years ago, and I was just the scrub PA. It's the first time I'd ever pulled cables that were like this big around, and I was the only idiot that showed up without gloves, right? Because you don't know those things when you first show up. And so I was like, wait a minute, yeah, I've got to pull this cable through how many buildings? And up how many flights of stairs, and all that stuff. And then basically, so I was just busting my butt. And it was the same kind of opportunity where except I kind of knew how to run camera because I'd learned in school. But, it was more or less the lead camera guy who was down like at the front, the handheld guy up front, same kind of thing. He got sick, couldn't show up. I was the only able-bodied guy standing around that didn't have a job. And the director was like, hey, can you run handheld? And I was like, yeah, I can. Had no idea, but I was like, yeah, absolutely I can. Mm-hmm. And I went there and I nailed it. And so I got to work like the rest of the 5 days as the handheld guy, and my rate went from like $150 a day to $500 a day. Yeah. And I mean, you want to talk about, world changing to a guy that's, 21 years old when you can make that kind of money. So it's just awesome. But yeah, it's so cool to see how if you're just positive and you're working hard, people want to help you, and those opportunities just start compounding, and you start learning so much over the years. Absolutely. So you've done all of this up to this point. Talk about give us a little bit of a bigger picture of what your production company is all about right now in terms of the kind of services you're providing and what's your bread and butter and that kind of thing.
Sure. Well, when I first started the company, one of the things I did in my business plan was I said the first thing this company was going to be was multidisciplinary, because I didn't want to have just all my eggs in one basket. I wanted to be able to do different things. Now, I came from a background of some print design, and then I moved into motion graphics, and everything kind of came together as this nice little marriage, so I could write, shoot, produce, edit, deliver stuff. So I started doing a lot of corporate work, corporate commercial, industrial films, training films. Anything that could be shot, would be shot, will be shot. So that's kind of what has been our bread and butter. But part of the business plan was to say that we did want to be a service to other production companies, providing crew, cameramen, and it ended up being mostly me. But that was part of it. Part of it was to make that bridge and freelance, because our market here in Winnipeg is saturated with camera people. We have four broadcasters, and a lot of guys got laid off. They were downsizing. Stations were kind of just laying people off. So everybody's out on the street, and they're thinking, well, what am I going to do? Well, I'll do what I know what to do, video production. So everybody's starting up their own companies. So the competition, and I use that word competition lightly, because I don't really think there's competition between companies. I think your only competition is yourself. But there's a lot of companies that were trying to, get involved. And so, there's a lot of people doing a lot of work for a lot of different businesses. But we know this was still part of our plan, was to provide a freelance service. So I started freelancing for other production companies who were people that were going after the same business that I was. And it just began to roll more and more, doing more work for other production companies. So it's always been kind of like a split. At the beginning, it was less freelancing, more of my own stuff. Now it's starting to level out about like a 50-50 or a 60-40 split.
How do you deal with the challenges of running a production company when so much of what you're doing is actually hands-on in the field? I mean, Michael and I talk all the time that we can go out and make a quick $1,000 by being a freelancer, but the entire 8 to 10 hours or 12 hours, really, if you think about all that goes into prepping for the shoot, we can't manage our company for those 12 hours. And that seems to be the days when all the emails come in and all hell breaks loose. And it's like, I mean, how do you deal with that as a business owner?
Well, I've had those times where I've lost clients because I was too busy. One of them happened when I was on a feature film. I was working on a feature and I didn't want to pack it in. And I had a customer who wanted me to do something, and I said, I'm sorry, I can't do it for you right now. Talk to me in a couple of weeks. Well, they didn't take too kindly to that. So, they went and found somebody else. So I lost customers, and that was a bit of a hard lesson for me to learn, is to say, how can I figure this out? How can I, still do the things I love, but still yet service all the customers that I have. So I have a few colleagues in town that would help me out in times when it was difficult. I was telling Mike before, I said I had two guys that will work for me on a contract basis or a project basis. And I just started having to sometimes say, okay, I'm committed to this project. I'm going to hire my buddy or my friend to come and shoot with me. And does a great job, somebody I trust implicitly, love them to pieces. But that's what I would just have to do, because sometimes the client just needed a warm body with a camera to film something, whether it was a live event, business meeting, whatever. Not world-changing, life-shattering things. So that was some of the ways that I would think about, is finding somebody I could trust and somebody that I could entrust my clients to, not worrying that they were going to try to steal them or hand out their business card and saying, well, hey, the next time you need somebody, why don't you call me instead of Dave? It wasn't stuff like that. These were people that I knew that had my back and I could trust. But I think a lot of it really comes down to choosing what kind of work you want to do. There would be times where we would get a lot of work, and sometimes you just have to say no. And I think this comes back to finding the balance of doing what you love, making money to provide for your family, but at the end of it, you have to say what's going to be the most important thing. And this is a decision my wife and I had to make, is to say, yes, honey, you can go and do what you love and go make money, but your family is still important. When you die and you're on your deathbed, you're not going to look and say, gee, I wish I spent more time at the office, making more money. No, you want to have your family around you. You want your kids to love you. I had a cameraman who gave me some advice one time. We were on a show, and he says, I'd rather see you not get into this industry than get into it. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, you make $250,000 a year. What's the problem? He said, I've missed my kid's first baseball game, their first recital, a Christmas concert, that sort of thing. And I didn't really understand what he meant until last year when I was freelancing on a show and I missed my daughter's Christmas concert. And that was devastating. When my daughter, I'm on Skype talking to her, and I told her that Daddy can't come to your concert. And her head hits the desk and she starts bawling and crying. And it just ripped my heart out when I realized that I put a job in front of my family. So you have to make a decision. Either you can make a lot of money and have no family time, or make less money and have equal family time. And that's tough, because when the work is coming at you, and it's coming at you continuously, you realize, hey, I could make a lot. I could make a lot of money doing this, but what's the trade-off going to be? And that's a piece of advice that I've heard from numerous directors of photography, cinematographers, who've all said the same thing. Something is going to suffer, but you have to be the one to choose what it's going to be.
Well, and it's such an awesome comment, and that's exactly right. I mean, you have to either, there's two things you can do to, make more money, either work harder or charge more. I mean, that's really it. But even when you charge more, well, there's a loss for both of those. If you work harder, you're losing family time. You're potentially losing your health because you're not taking care of yourself.
Yep.
But there's a cap on how much more you can charge. You can't just decide one day that you're going to be a $5,000 a day camera guy, because nobody's going to pay that. There might be a handful that will, but
and maybe once, and that's it.
Yeah, and so to say a little, to piggyback off of what you were saying with having some guys that have your back whenever you can't, double up. In essence, when you need a double book, but you can't, you're out here working and you need somebody to cover you. Have you, over the years, have you kind of used your own personal brand equity or company brand equity to build, these guys that are, I've got guys that I used to count on the same way. Hey, if I'm booked, I'm going to send you out there. But now those same guys are hey, I got a soccer game that I got to go to tonight. I need you to go cover for me. Can you do it? And it's like you have that kind of relationship. And I don't freelance as much as I used to, but still, if any one of those guys called me and said, man, I'm in a pinch, my son in Atlanta, something happened, I've got to go help him, can you take care of me? Absolutely, I'd step in and treat that customer the same way. So you can also grow as a freelancer by using your popularity and your brand equity, if you will, and to tell your clients, hey, this is another guy on my team that's going to take care of that for you.
Yes.
So it's not necessarily an emergency situation, it's a scalability thing. Have you done any of that?
Yeah, I mean, we've always used the language, whenever I communicate with my customers, I always use the word we. I very rarely use the word I. And it's not that I'm trying to fool somebody into thinking that, that I've got this big company with like 50 people working for me. I say we because any smart business person surrounds themselves with other creative people or people who've got the kind of skills that you need to be successful. So I may sub out some work to a motion graphics designer. I may sub out the camera work to another person and maybe some editing. It really depends. It depends where I'm at and what I'm willing to do. So yes, the personal brand, when people are coming to my company, are calling us, they're calling the company, it's not me. And so yes, I'm the face of the company, and I build the brand and the experience around this is what it's like to deal with me, and I make sure and communicate that to the guys who are working for me. I say some very specific things that I would expect. Have some expectations. If you come to my shoot, you don't dress like a slob. You dress well, you smell good. Your teeth are brushed, all that kind of stuff, part of the experience. Like, I haven't gone to the extent of getting my own shirts and stuff made. I have made one jacket, but I haven't given them to the other guys and saying, here's your uniform. Sometimes I'd like to, but I think sometimes it looks a little hokey. So, but no, I definitely, I try to portray that to the people that are working with me and let them see, even if it is a competitor who's shooting with me, the experience is still the same. It's still an Artisan Media or a Dave Wowchuk experience.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
Well,
go ahead, Michael. Go ahead.
I got one thing I wanted to say that we talked about beforehand that I know a lot of guys struggle with sometimes, and I just want to put it out there. We talked about personality a little bit in getting jobs, and we talk about standing out and how you're getting the attention to get these jobs, and how when other guys may be getting laid off or may not be getting the work, you're getting the work. And we talked a lot about how personality can play into that. And I've had a lot of experiences with that, but I want to hear your experience with how personality has helped you stand out from the crowd and keep getting those jobs.
Well, I mean, I've never been accused of being silent. I've always been chatty, and it's kind of part of my family's makeup. We're very talkative. Sometimes we talk too much. This call is probably a great example of it, if someone's using a stopwatch and keeping track of my answers. But you have to be personable. You have to be friendly. You have to be approachable. I mean, I was working on a freelance gig for another production company, and their director of photography was the crustiest, just mean-spirited individual, and I was listening to the way he was interacting with his client, and I said, I would never, ever speak to my client in a derogatory way or say anything to them that made them feel like they were stupid or that they weren't smart or intelligent. And I sat there and I'm just like, how does this happen? How can you treat people that way? So my approach has always been super personable. Always. It's the first thing. It's like it's building a relationship first. A great piece of advice was they're a friend first, they're a client second. I mean, there's some great books that I've read over the years. One of my favorite sales authors and business authors is Jeffrey Gitomer. He's got a whole series of books on the 12 and a half commandments of selling, sales Bible, and so much of it has to do with attitude, personality. It's not about technique. It's not about the latest sales gimmick that you can use. It's about being real. It's about being authentic. It's about being personable, friendly, helpful. One thing after another. You can just rattle them up. And if you come onto a shoot with a great attitude, a can-do spirit, you're funny, you can make people laugh, set them at ease, and be willing to serve. That's something that I learned when I was working at my church, was when you have a servant's attitude that you're there to help and to serve and to be helpful. It's not about me. It's about your customer. And when you come in with that kind of attitude, it's not hard to stand out in the industry. All of a sudden, like, you're just so different. And I'm like, I'm just being me. I don't have to put it on. I'm just being me. And this has been the thing that I've heard over and over again from a lot of my clients is like, you're just so friendly and you're so easy to get along with and you set our people at ease. And I've had these testimonials come in one after another. And I'm not trying to say it's just a, puff yourself up, but it's a matter of just being helpful and not coming in saying it's going to be my agenda or it's going to be, my great idea that's going to change the world, coming in like the knight on a white horse. No, you come in to serve and to help and do the very best you can, and it's not hard to stand out just with that alone, never mind your other skills and stuff that come into it.
I have one of my main kind of mentor when I got started, the reason I was in Greenville in the first place, coming out of college, Ben Weeks with Aardvark Interactive Services. He kind of took me on as an intern, and one of the things I noticed time and time again, when the situation would seem so incredibly stressful, and the clients would be throwing demands at him left and right, like, I need you to do this, can you do this? And it would be even the most ridiculous request, his response was always, sure. Mm-hmm. It wasn't yes, it wasn't maybe, it was like the word sure. Hey, can you do that? Sure. Sure, no problem, we can take care of it. And I asked him, I was like, well, why do you always say sure instead of yes or yeah, we can? He's like, there's just something about the word sure that puts everybody at ease. It's a calming effect, and he goes in it. And it's the other side of it is, when things are very challenging and the deadline's looming or it's a big show and we've got technical issues, I mean, he was always so incredibly calm. I'm like, what, how? How do you do that? And he's like, Chris, look, number one, it doesn't do anybody any good to freak out, especially if you're the one in charge. Yeah. And he's like, number two, if every single one of those clients are sweating bullets and they see that you're not dropping a single bead of sweat, you'll have a client for life. Absolutely. They will hire you every time because no matter how bad the situation gets, Chris Simmons or Dave Wowchuk or Ben Weeks is going to handle it, and it doesn't matter. Everything's going to be good. And I think that's what you're talking about. I mean, it's just the fact of being able to stay calm, do what you can do. Michael and I joke all the time. I say, man, it's absolutely ridiculous if you think about it, that just the biggest competitive advantage you have is just doing what you say you're going to do.
Absolutely. Delivering on time, doing what you said you were going to do. I mean, part of when I was doing my business plan, I was part of taking a business course, and a couple of things that they said. They said the first thing you can do strategically is find out what your competitors are doing bad and do the opposite.
Right.
So if they're all really bad and they don't deliver on time, make sure you deliver on time. If they're not communicating, make sure you communicate. It was one thing after another, and I did my market research, and I found such commonality amongst other creative people. They were late, didn't talk to me, didn't communicate, didn't listen to me. And I sat there and I thought, you know what, write all those things down and put that as part of your business philosophy, that I'm going to do all of these things. I mean, and that's on the business and the freelance side, both of them. Freelancing, make sure that, you're there on time. If the call time is 8 a.m. or if it's 5 a.m., you're there early. You're there smiling, ready, like, oh, God, I can't believe I had to get up at 5 a.m. for this shoot. It's like, no, there's no time for that. The producers are going to go, bye-bye, wave bye-bye to you for the next time around.
I mean, each time you've been on a shoot, who's the one who is just the godsend at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning? It's the one that has coffee and some kind of breakfast. I mean, you could literally have stopped at a convenience store and got 5 or 6 orange juices and some granola bars, and you're the freaking hero. I mean, it's like, it's crazy how those little things make such a huge difference. You were talking about deadlines, meeting your deadlines, and that's the other thing that a lot of our members at Create, they're like, I want to meet deadlines, but I just have challenges meeting deadlines, and the clients aren't happy and that kind of thing. And the biggest, because I got to that point in my career, I built my foundation on doing what I say I'm going to do, delivering on time, delivering early, But then as you get busy, you get popular, that becomes harder and harder.
Wow.
And I was so stressed out by this several years back, and I have a lot of mentors, so I'm always, things that I've learned from mentors. I'm asking this guy, and it takes me like half an hour to lay out the problem, right? I can't meet my deadlines. And he was like, well, all the deadline is an expectation. He's like, why don't you just change the expectation?
Absolutely.
And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, if you know Monday that the deadline is Friday and you're not going to make the deadline, go ahead and tell them, hey, can we get a few more days because we've got whatever, and move the deadline. And as long as you're getting to them, far enough in advance, all you have to do is set and reset the expectation. And as far as the client's, concerned, you're still meeting your deadlines.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they see that you're willing to you're honest. That you're not trying to lie to them and say, oh, I'm sorry, we had a technical issue with the edit suite, or the hard drive failed, and I got to send the footage to Drive Savers to get it back. But meanwhile, it's been your own fault. If you pony up and you're honest with people, you know what, they can trust you. And trust is one of the biggest issues I find, is can the people trust you to do what you said, do a great job, represent them well, as you're freelancing them, or as you're freelancing for them, represent their company well. So many of those things, but a lot of it comes down to trust. So much.
Well, and being willing to accept it, to take full 100% responsibility, even if it's not necessarily 100% your fault. Absolutely. I mean, that's what I've learned over the years with the big companies. That's, we had a huge, cluster, at one of my biggest events a few months ago with my largest client, and the project manager who works for the VP thought that we were supposed to do one thing, so I built the whole show around that expectation. Mm-hmm. Well, the VP showed up, and it was nothing like what he wanted it to be, and I kept waiting for all of his staff, somebody to ante up and say, hey, we screwed up, boss, but nobody did. So I was sitting there going, all right, I'm gonna throw myself in front of the bus, and I just said, hey, his name's Roy. I said, hey, Roy, I said, listen, obviously there's a miscommunication. I know you're not happy. What can I do to make you happy? What can we do to just get past this? And then he basically cussed everything up and down for about 5 minutes, and then he felt better, and he goes, Chris, I know it's not your fault. He's like, what can we do to just make this a little bit more like I want? I offered a suggestion, and then the next day he was bragging about our company to the CEO, to the, board directors, the whole thing. And it's like, hey, if you guys ever need something, this is your guy. This guy is awesome. And just because I was willing to say, hey, even though it wasn't my fault, hey, listen, what can I do to fix it? The buck stops here. Obviously, my team did this, so how can we make it right?
Yeah.
And so it's just, it's awesome.
Great approach.
So talk to me a little bit about, in a day and time where the economy still sucks, let's be honest, at least the U.S. economy, and I'm sure most of the rest of the world, if we're not doing well, everyone else is probably not doing well too. I don't know for sure, and so, it used to be that a client of mine would say, hey, we've got this conference in California, and so just let it, we're going to fly your crew down to California and do this whole shoot thing for us in California. Well, that doesn't happen anymore. They're like, hey, Chris, we're going to hire this crew out of California so we don't have to pay the travel, and then we'll send the footage back to you, so just tell them what they need. How are you getting clients to pay for you to go out of country to do work? What's the secret sauce there?
I don't know if I could say there's a secret sauce to it, but in my experience, now everybody's market is different. But what has worked for me was being a freelancer. Like if they've called me once to do a job for them, it's bringing exceptional value or bringing more to the table than just being the shooter. You're not just the guy who's showing up with your Lowell DV Creators light kit and your little camcorder to shoot their little piece for them. It's like you're coming with a wealth of knowledge and experience and expertise. You come with the ability to offer up great opinions and suggestions and offer them up in a tactful way that, you're not just going to do, I'm just going to do the basic 3-point lighting setup. here's key, here's fill, here's your backlight, boom. I mean, there's times where you need those, that's fine. But when you start saying, you know what, hey, maybe could we do it this way? Or what would you think if we shot this way? And all of a sudden they see like, oh, you've got a little bit more to offer. And then you execute it and you do the job well and they're like, wow, like that's amazing. Like, we've never had an interview shot that well, or we've never had footage shot that well. And then you do it again and again, and then they start to realize, they're like, you know what, this guy's really good, and we're getting consistent results, we're getting great footage. And so then the next time when they call and they say, hey, we've got this shoot in, wherever, in some other city, well, they know they can trust you, and they know what the result is going to be. I mean, I had a client call from out in Eastern Canada, from a large organization, and they were flying across the country doing these interviews for this particular industry. I won't say it just because it could stick out really easily. And she hired people in every city to shoot for her. And when she came here, she was like, oh, she says, you just have no idea how disastrous this was. She says, the guy who showed up on this shoot, I don't even know if the stuff on his demo reel on his website was really his, because I had to handhold him through the process of doing this basic shoot. And she says, and we spent thousands of dollars flying the producers in from out of town, putting people up in hotels, renting gear, arranging things with the talent, the people who are appearing on camera, and it was a disaster. And then it turns out that, well, when she's working with me, she's like, you know what, you're different. Like, everything went so smoothly, it was so great, the footage was awesome. When you start hearing that kind of stuff, then they know that you can be the go-to guy. You could be the go-to person. I mean, last year I was working on a series. I know I've been talking about it a lot on Facebook and on my business page. I was working on the series Massive Moves for Home and Garden Television. It was a 26-episode series, and they called me up one day. It was 7 o'clock in the morning, and the phone rang. I'm looking at it. I'm saying, I don't recognize this phone number. It's probably a telemarketer. I wasn't going to answer the phone. I picked it up anyways, and it's the production manager from the production company in the UK. And he starts talking a little bit, and at first I'm kind of skeptical, thinking this isn't legit. This is somebody yanking my chain. But then I went on the web while we're talking, and I'm like, okay, no, this is legit. This is a legit production. And basically he turns out and says to me, he says, we had a problem with one of our camera operators. We're shooting in Fargo, which is about a 4-hour drive here from Winnipeg, south into the United States. And he says, yeah, we have a problem. Do you think you could be here by 1 o'clock in the afternoon? And I'm like, excuse me? I said, and he's like, yeah. He says, could you make it here by 1 o'clock in the afternoon? And I did exactly what you said. I said, sure. Meanwhile, my mind is going a million miles an hour thinking about the documentation, paperwork, and everything I got to do, prepping my gear, getting all the stuff ready to go across the border. I arrived at 1:30, and I got customs documentation done. I got all my gear ready, and batteries were all charged. I had to build the whole package, get everything ready, and I showed up, and I honestly think that was part of why I got the gig at first, was because I showed up. I was able to help them out, make it on time. And then as I began to shoot for them, like, this was only supposed to be a one-timer. Then they called me back and said, hey, we got another shoot coming up in the area. Are you interested? Can you make it? Absolutely. And then one after the other. And then eventually it turned into those ones where they're like, your footage is really good. We really like your work. We'd like to travel you now. And so then I started flying to South Carolina to shoot 2 shows. I went to Florida to shoot a show. That's when I think I was talking to you. We were driving down the road, and I was on my way to Kennedy Space Center on one of my days off. And it just happened overnight. It was 9 episodes later, and now they've said, you know what? When season 3 rolls around, you're going to be the guy we're going to call. I mean, there was a whole bunch of people that were all on the crew, and I think it's probably going to end up getting pared down now to me and one other guy out in Western Canada who will be part of the crew. But it's that part of just being really good at what you're doing, giving more, pouring more into it, and then people will just begin to trust you. They begin to appreciate your professionalism, what you bring to the table, and then that becomes referrals. And then you start getting calls from everywhere else.
Well, and if you we always talk about anything in sales, it has to do with, or marketing, the pain point. What's the customer's level of pain? What's creating that pain? Mm-hmm. And if you can solve that pain enough times, then you eventually elevate into that level of being somebody they can't do business without. Yeah. And that's really, what I try to do when I get in with customers is I want to divide like a virus as soon as I get to the front door, helping as many people as I can. And even in some cases, I don't get paid for that help. I'm talking about shooting for days that I'm not getting paid for, but it's extra service here. It's running this errand for them, giving them a little tech support on something that has nothing to do with why I'm there. But if the person who controls the checkbook is high enough up the chain, and the people like the director, the producers, have enough influence over that, that's probably where at the point where they're like, you know what, we're saving so much time in editing and heartache and pain, and let's just bring them with us. It's worth it. Yeah. If we save a day or two of us trying to figure out what to do with the footage once it gets here, that's going to pay for Dave to be with us. And I think that's another thing that, guys, if you can be irreplaceable, figure out a way to be such a necessary part of your customer's process that they can't live without you. And when you can master that, it's going to just, the referrals and the rates and everything is just going to start to snowball. And it's really it's an awesome thing. I told a customer several years ago, he was like, well, what's your vision for working with us? And I was like, I want to be just as important to you as your lawyer is and your CPA is. Mm-hmm. Like, that's how much I want to be a part of your company. And it's amazing how when you develop that kind of partnership, your revenues can just skyrocket.
Absolutely. So true.
Michael, man, I think we got 10 questions in the queue, man. You want to do the bridge for us, kind of get everybody ready to go?
Here goes.
Guys, again, we appreciate everyone being on the call today, guys. Without you, this wouldn't be possible. And be sure to check out createinsights.com. That's what this is brought to you by. For everybody in guest mode, if you guys have questions for Dave, you've been hearing things and you're like, oh my gosh, I've got to ask him this. Right below Chris, you'll see a submit a question button. All of you can do that, but those of you in guest mode are going to need to log in when you do that via Facebook or Twitter. And that's all you have to do, and you'll be able to ask your questions. And then finally, Dave, I have one thing, and we're going to get this going. You can keep this one real short. One thing we talked about is, so many guys are confused about what to do, but you have a passion and love what you do. And that's why it's just a no-brainer to sometimes volunteer or do free work or do different things, because you just love it. And that's what can set you apart. Finding that right thing. If you just talk about that for just 1 second, we're going to take those questions.
Sure.
I'd love for you to touch on that.
Well, you know what? It's like that saying goes, if you find something that you love to do, you'll never work another day in your life. And that has been kind of the statement for life for me is I found what I love to do. When I was in junior high school, it was the first time I had an experience with a camera. My brother was a professional photographer. I saw it. I thought it was interesting. I like being in the dark room, developing my own prints and stuff. I really found just this love for images and images that tell a story. And then I was going to go pursue medicine. I wanted to go to school. I wanted to become a doctor. And you couldn't shake the creative bug. It was just there. It started to just kind of point at me a little bit and come back. And I thought, you know what? If I pursue something that I hate, I'm going to regret it for the rest of my life, and I'll be miserable. I'll be I'll be angry. Who knows what'll happen. And so when I found it, like when I did that first volunteer gig, when I found that spark, I thought, you know what, I'm going to pursue this. I'm going to pursue it. I want to go after it with everything in my being. I'm going to learn everything I can. I'm going to read as many books as I can, take as many workshops as I can, and when you find that driving force, that driving passion in your life, then what you do becomes natural as breathing. then you'll want to pick up the latest books, and you'll want to, read as much as you can and become a master of your craft. And you'll spend any amount of money on that education, and as much money as you can on learning and acquiring new skills. Because if you're not passionate about it, just do yourself a favor and do everybody else a favor. Get out of it. Get out of it. If you hate it, stop. I've run into so many people, bitter, angry, crusty people on different sets and features and docs, and they just hate what they do. And I'm just like, well, then stop. Quit. Go do something else. Find something that you love to do, because then your life will be rewarding. I mean, I was interviewing a psychiatrist, and he said, you know what the key to mental health is? Meaningful relationships and meaningful activities. A couple of key things to it. And both of those, I think, are, if you have great friends, great people you work with, and find something that you love to do, mentally, you can be healthy and enjoy life.
Rock and roll. Love it. All right, let's get this moving. And John Penner, I'm calling you out there, buddy. If you have some questions and you can't figure out the submitted question, it's right below Chris or anybody else. If it's not working for you, let us know, and I'll add it to the queue right from the chat if you just can't get it in. So put question mark and then put it in there, and then I'll add it to the queue. So here we go. All right, John Wallage back again. We appreciate him being here from the UK. He says it's a lot harder to get started in the UK unless you are known. Do you know anything about that? Or, what is your insight anywhere, really?
Relationships are super important. There's no doubt about it. I know even here, my entry into professional sports, shooting for the Winnipeg Jets, our NHL franchise. Go Jets, go! That was because of a friendship that I had with someone else, but they also put their name to what I did because they said, I know you can do this. I know you've got the chops to shoot sports. And I had never shot, hockey before, not even kids hockey. But I went in and he referred me. He says, you know what, I'm vouching for Dave. So you know what, friendships and relationships have a huge part to do it. But the way you get known is to be with the people who are doing what you want to do. So that's where the volunteering comes in. Setting aside okay, I make $50 an hour. I'm not going to work for free. Well, then you'll probably never do what you really want to do. If you want to make a break into an industry, you're going to have to do something that you've never done. You'll have to volunteer or want to volunteer and go pull cable or go, drive the golf cart. Whatever it's going to take for you to get in front of the faces of the people you want to work for or work with, you're going to have to do it. So you have to be known in that respect, but also your reputation and your work, like if you got a good website, if you're advertising, like I think you said, John, he said he's from the UK. Well, I actually advertise on one of the UK's largest directories for freelance crew, and that's mandy.com. There's a whole bunch of sites that you can advertise your own personal website on, or you as a freelancer. That's where I get a lot of business from, is from these online directories. Putting myself out there and making sure you got a great-looking website, that you've got great-looking material. For an example, I don't have an official demo reel, but I have links to my work. I've got an exhaustive resume. I've got a Vimeo page. I've got a YouTube page. I've got examples on my site. So, that's the way you get known. One of the other questions I saw was people saying you do cold calls and stuff. It's like, well, I sent letters out to every production company in Winnipeg introducing myself, saying, here's some work. Here's what I do. Would love to help you. Sending emails out to different production companies all over. So, to get known, you got to get out there. You got to get in front of the faces of the people that you want to work for. So you got to be aggressive. You can't wait for the phone to ring. Otherwise, you're going to starve. You're going to starve to death.
That's great. That's great. Perfect. All right, Benjamin Garst, I think, has a good chunk of questions here. Hey, buddy, we appreciate it. Looks like you're new on here. We appreciate you being on. He says, could you talk about the difference between making a living in a union versus non-union? You might have some insight into that for the...
Very simple. I'm actually not unionized at all. I've just actually chosen to not be unionized. On some of the features and stuff that I worked on, I was brought on as a permittee, so I was paying union dues as a deduction from my check, but I'm not a union cameraman. I have thought about joining the union, but I've just resisted. I don't know if I want to spend $3,000 on initiation fees and $500 a year for dues. Do I think I'm going to get any more work being a union guy? Maybe. I may get calls to go work on features and stuff, but I don't know if I want to do that because working on features and stuff like that's not so family friendly. You know, when you're working 14, 16 hours a day, spending time away from your family, yeah, I make good money, but I won't have a family left when I come home. So I think the non-union, I don't think it's an issue. I think you could make just as good of a living as a non-union cameraman as you would as a unionized guy. That's just my opinion.
Perfect. All right, we got Ken White here. Ken, thanks for being on the call again, buddy. Are you noticing in your area that corporate clients are finally realizing just because cameras have become cheap, it is still important to hire a professional?
My favorite saying in life, good, fast, cheap. Pick any two. You know, everybody they want it fast and cheap. Well, it's not going to be very good. Yeah, absolutely. They have to go through some pain and suffering of doing it themselves first and realizing how they tarnish their brand and how they make their company look. It's kind of those things where you kind of have to let people you have to let them go through it. You have to. It's like being a parent. You can tell people, but until you're a parent, you never know what it's really like. So there's some corporate clients, yeah, they got to go through it, and they will come around. I just finished a job for a client just last week. It was the same thing. They were trying to do it on their own, and it didn't work.
Perfect. Great answers, man. I love that one. John Wowchuk said, I see that we both have done some work with CBS. What did you shoot, and was the studio coffee as bad as the CBS LA studio coffee?
You know what? It was actually just a local. It was a local shoot. Inside Edition magazine came to Winnipeg to shoot, and we just did a shoot for them. So it wasn't anything major. It was like a one-timer, but it looks good on the resume.
Perfect. Perfect. Let's see here, we've got Fat Armadillo. Rock and roll, buddy. How are you doing? Thanks for being on the call. He says, how do you deal with kids with camcorders as competition? Here in Texas, everybody's got a camera, but most suck with it. Now, it probably applies more to the answer we just had, but...
Yeah. Well, you know, there's a blog that I subscribe to. His name's Mike Jones. He's an instructor in Australia. And he said, you know, like he says, you know, if what's the discussion that happens between the amateur and the professional? Nothing. There is no discussion between the two. And yeah, there's lots of kids with the camcorders and lots of kids with their DSLRs and, you know, out there giving away the work for nothing. And that's fine. Go for it. You know what? I just look at it to say, I've got something more to bring. They may come and do it on the cheap, but I'll bring how many years of experience as a business person, marketing information, strategies for them to how to be successful, how to take that video and use it to, you know, to their advantage. There's so many things that we have to realize that we've got more to offer than just being a shooter. You know, each one of us has probably got amazing experience and can offer up some great advice to our customers. Excuse me. And you just have to be willing to put yourself out there and throw it out and let them see that you've got more to offer than just, you know, your 5D Mark II and your little set of, you know, tripod sticks. So it's, yeah, I don't even look at them as competition. Yeah, they're taking some work away, but you know what? Jeffrey Gitomer had a great saying in one of his books. He says, you have to learn to adapt or you're going to get your ass kicked by someone who will.
Perfect. That's perfect, man. You're just throwing out all the great quotes today. I love it. All right, we got a few more here from Benjamin. As a freelancer, do you work strictly with your own gear, or do you primarily rent? Things are moving so quick with the advancement of digital. What's your strategy?
It depends. You see, every project is different. As a freelancer, there are some clients who have very specific specifications for how things need to be shot. They may come and say, well, our broadcaster requires everything to be shot in 422 on XD-Cam HD on disc. Well, I don't have the camera, so I will rent. I do have 2 in-house cameras, and I own them because of the frequency of the requests from clients to say, okay, hey, can you send us something that's shot on a DSLR? Sure. We need something in XD-Cam. Sure. I can shoot that. I have an EX1R, great camera, and customers are very happy with it. So I own the gear that I'm going to use enough to make it pay for itself, even if it's a lease. Was my philosophy. If I'm renting a camera once a month, and that rental is the same cost as leasing one per month, I will lease it. So I own my own camera, and if I charge it out to the client, four times a month, well, I've paid for that monthly lease payment 4 times over. So that's the only thing. I mean, I'd love to go out and buy a brand new Canon 1DC or a C500, but I can't afford it, and I don't think I've got the work to justify the payments for it. So, the gear lust and reality have to come together.
Wow. We need to publish the Dave Wowchuk little book of inspirational quotes.
Well, the saying goes, if you can't impress people with your brilliance, you baffle them with your BS.
There's another one. I love it, and I'm a sucker for those. I love it. Well, hey, we always try to be respectful of one's time that we have on here. We're right at about the hour mark. We've got 8 questions left, actually. How much time do you have? We typically don't go. Okay, we'll go about another 10 or 15 minutes max, and we'll end this. Guys, we're going to have to stop.
I'm watching the clock because I'm trying to be a good dad. I have to go pick up my kids from school in 25 minutes. So whatever we can fit in, let's go for it.
No more questions submitted. We're going to try to finish these up, so let's rock it out. We'll keep moving forward. Here we got Steve. Steve, thanks for being on the call, my man. He says, still working a full-time job, but I've been freelancing for many years as a camera op. How do you make that jump, or is it best to just push for projects until it becomes obvious to make the jump?
He answered his own question. Yeah, he answered his own question. Once you got enough jobs, there's a company here in town that formed out of some guys that were doing wedding films, and they moved into corporate work. And once the workload for what they were doing on the side was greater than their day job, they made the jump, and now they got a full-time company going. So, yeah, once you find that little tipping point, the rest will just happen on its own.
Perfect. All right, we've got, let's see here, Anthony Cadigan. Thanks for being on the call, man. We truly appreciate you being on here today. I think that many of us, as well as running a video business, also have aspirations to someday work in film. I go back and forth between waiting to be a director versus a DP. What has your experience been like wearing different hats on different projects, and what do you enjoy most?
That's a good question. I posed a similar question like this to a couple of ASC cinematographers in 2 workshops. And because I was trying to find that balance between the creative side and feeling rewarded by what I do and a balance of family time. I finally just had to say to myself, I know what I'm good at, and I know what I really love to do, and that's shoot. Yes, I can edit. Yes, I can write. Yes, I can do the basics. But the thing that just stirs my juices is shooting. And I think I was very similar in the sense that I have aspirations to work in features, you know, later in life, not now. That's just because there's other things, family, my kids, more important to me than going and making a name for myself. And this is one of the things that one of the ASC cinematographers, his name's Mark Irwin, he's the DP for movies like There's Something About Mary and a bunch of different series. He said to me, he says, you know what, if you want to find that outlet for your creativity, start projects of your own. Do things like do your own documentaries. Do your own documentaries. Be the DP on your own stuff where you can control the schedule, where somebody's not controlling the schedule for you. So I've kind of had to embrace that thought of not saying, well, I don't want to be, Darius Wolski. I don't want to be, Vittorio Storaro. I want a guy who's got just feeling good about what I do and creating some great images and telling some great stories. So I don't know if I've answered the question or not. I may just be running in circles, but you just got to find what you feel you're really good at and what you could be happy doing without shooting for the stars.
Well, it looks like we lost Michael. See where he's at here. See if I can put him back on screen. I don't know. Might have lost internet connection. All right, well, I'll keep it rolling.
He'll be back.
Yeah, he will be back. All right, so Doug, I know you mentioned a little bit about this earlier, but if you could elaborate some. He asked, do you do a lot of cold calls looking for business? What's your best way of doing so?
No, I don't believe in doing cold calls whatsoever. It's actually something I'm very against. I prefer more warm handoffs or warm introductions. Yeah, that's a tough one. 'Cause, I mean, I have done, like I've sent out mailers and letters and things to different, production companies and stuff. I've tried some cold calling and sending out letters to, like I picked a sector. I picked the manufacturing sector and I sent out like 500 letters introducing me, my company, and everything, what we could do for them and how we could take their company and use video to leverage their business. Well, I think I got one job out of it. I mean, it paid for the entire advertising campaign that I just did, but it didn't give me the results that I wanted to. So I'm kind of like, well, that didn't work. Probably won't do it again. I got to figure out another way to network and to do it, whether it's through the Winnipeg Chamber of Commerce or something else. But no, I won't do cold calls.
Perfect. I'm back. Can everybody hear me and see me?
Yeah, we got you, man.
I don't know what happened. All right, we got Nick Justice. Nick's new. He signed up for the Create newsletter and whatnot. When does the artist in you defeat the bizman in you?
Good one. That's a great question. I actually would say it doesn't defeat it because I'm a business person first. That's always been my philosophy is I'm a business person first because creative people are typically known to be kind of sloppy, irresponsible, not great business people because we love what we do. We love the art. We love that part and we forget about business. I take it the opposite approach. I think of everything from the side of business, quantifying, my rates and making sure that I'm charging the right rates. All that kind of stuff you got to think about first, and then the creative side takes a back seat. Because if, for example, my son came at me with a sharp poker and poked me in the eye, and I couldn't look through a viewfinder again, what am I going to do? I got to be a business person first to figure out how I'm going to pick up and continue making money for myself, because I lost my tools, I lost my eye. So you got to be a business person first, which is why, and here's a plug, why I like, Chris's things. He's got his ebooks about like a six-figure videographer, all that kind of stuff. Is fantastic material because it speaks to the business person so that you think about it as a business first instead of just as the art.
Perfect.
Thanks
awesome,
for that.
guys.
Yeah, no problem.
And guys, and we've got 3 questions left, so I think we're going to get through that. And that's what we're so passionate about here, and that's what these calls are for you guys, just so everybody can hear that. Sometimes we say some things at the very end. But Chris and I are so passionate about helping you guys as video professionals, succeed. That's why we focus more. Notice we didn't sit here and talk to Dave all day about the cameras and the technology and, like you said, three-point lighting and all that, because so many of you get that, but you don't know how to make money. You don't know how to take what you love and then succeed and make a living at it. And that's what we're here to help you do, and that's why we have Dave on today. So 3 more questions left, but we appreciate that, Dave, and that's what this is all about, helping people succeed. So, all right. Jeff Long says, talk about how you run a video production and web design company. Does that water down your services doing both video and web design?
Actually, it's just the opposite. It's actually it's a way for me to be a one-stop shop for my customers, because I got tired of giving away work to somebody else when they're like, okay, yeah, you've done a video for us. I don't have a website. Can you help us with that? No, sorry. Yeah, you can go and talk to so-and-so. And it kept happening over and over and over again. So what ended up happening was a colleague of mine who works for a large web design company, very, very big company here in the city, he does all my coding work for me. So I do a lot of the initial consultation, meet with the customers, I do the initial designs and layouts and concepts, and then I give it to him to finish. And then I say, hey, now I've got a place for you to put your video that we finished for you. And then they're like, great, because I don't have to talk to a web guy. I don't have to talk to a separate video production guy. I don't have to talk to a separate writer. I can get it all done with one guy, one face, and they're happy as can be.
Perfect. You're rocking and rolling, man. And hey, guys, everybody in the chat, I put expert interrogations in the archives page. If you guys have missed any of these calls, be sure to check out that page. We've had a lot of great people. We also have a suggested experts. If you've got somebody you'd like to see on the call, please suggest them so we can get them on here. We try to do these every Tuesday and Thursday. If we don't do 2, we at least try to do 1. Every Tuesday, Thursday, same time. So we got 2 questions left, Dave. Appreciate you getting this out. I think you got about 10 minutes left here.
It's all good.
Ildis Albalins. I'm probably crucifying that, but he says, how do clients react to DSLR equipment and the quality of videos filmed on DSLR?
Well, I think it's a matter of you have to have the right camera for the right application. If you're going to shoot, a live event where it's somebody behind a podium, I don't need to bring out a DSLR. Why do I want to make a business meeting look cinematic? It's all about the application. You have to have the right camera for the right job. I'm not going to go shoot a 3-hour live event with a DSLR. I'm going to drive myself crazy changing cards and missing pieces. So there are some of them that they do like the quality of how a DSLR, the image from a DSLR looks, and I'm happy to give them that. But if I know that it's going to come back and bite me in the rear end, I'm not going to use it and I'm not going to suggest it. Like I'm doing a concert tomorrow with another production company, and we're shooting it all on the EX1. Why? Because it's a long concert and it needs to be one almost continuous shoot, because there's 6 cameras that are all going to be synced together. So we can't shoot another DSLR. But if I do shoot with a DSLR, one of the things I love to do, now I'm just going to pull it out just because I love, hang on a second.
Well, guys, while he's doing that, again, we appreciate you'll be on the call on expertinterrogations.com. We're doing a contest for a GoPro giveaway if any of you guys want to win a camera. So that picture is right above that. Go ahead, Dave.
Sorry about that. So when I show up on a shoot with my DSLR, this is what I bring out. I don't bring out the DSLR with the camera strap still attached to it, because then the customer's going, what am I paying for? I bring out something that makes a cinematic image, works like it's a cinematic thing, and then they're like, holy crow, I've never seen a camera with such a big lens. It's not a big lens, it's a matte box. So
I may have picked that trick up from you, Dave.
Oh, great.
Mine's not near as big and as awesome as yours though, because I don't like using the focus assist. It drives me nuts.
That's what you hire a second assistant camera person for, or a first assistant.
That's true.
That's awesome. Well, we've got one question left here, Dave, and we'll be wrapping this up. Guys, we appreciate everybody being on the call today. It's been a great, very insightful call. So Storied Rival says, how do I find quality freelance shooters? So he's trying to find people for his production company. I guess he has a hard time finding quality people. What's your suggestion for that?
You know, you gotta see other people's work. I mean, like the two guys that I have entrusted some work for, I've seen their work. I've had them work with me, bring them on as an assistant or as a second shooter, and maybe put them on the B camera, and then let them shoot some other thing. I've got the most important stuff, but let them shoot the B camera stuff that maybe is going to get cut in editing just as insert shots or just general B-roll. And I look to see what the quality of their work is like, and to see if they understood what I said when I was asking them what to shoot. Because you can't always go off of everybody's demo reel, because that's the very, very best. But what's their very, very worst? You got to find that happy balance. So that's a tough question. I've had to go through, a few guys to get the guys that I want. But some of the guys I've worked with previously, so I know what their work is like. I've seen it. So that's kind of tough to say.
Well, and I just want to add, first of all, if he wants to, put in the chat where he's located, but part of our Create Insider coaching program in our community that we've built up there, we've had a lot of guys networking inside of there that are able to, like Chris has had guys, shoot for him that are insider members. So we have a lot of great guys in there. So if anybody wants to check that out, I just put the link and it's up on the screen. We have a free trial for 30 days, guys. You can get in there and you can check that out, but there's a members directory. And there's a lot of the members in there that can get on, and you can network with them and find some great quality guys. But we'll get on more to that. I just want to thank Dave for being on the call today, man. This was a freaking great call. You were awesome, and I mentioned that we'll have to potentially put together a training for everybody. Give us a yay or whatever in the chat. We're basically wanting to put together a training for like freelance shooting, so that we can do a step-by-step on really how to go about doing this and doing it successfully, to be a little bit more in-depth. So, Dave, we appreciate that.
If I can just wrap up with a couple of encouragements for the guys that are out there, because when I first started freelancing, I felt it was really tough. I felt I was coming up against, it was the David and Goliath kind of thing. The things that you have to do is you have to get yourself out there. You have to take a chance, take a risk. Put yourself out there, get a great website, market yourself in online directories, make sure your personal website rocks, volunteer on different shoots, get yourself in front of the people that you need to be. But the biggest thing, I've said this to people I've taught before or students that I've worked with before, is you have to be a lifelong learner. You have to study, read some great books, take some great courses. I've been to the main media workshops up in Rockport. I've taken a Steadicam workshop, camera and visual storytelling workshop, and there's another one I want to take on documentary camera this year. It's expensive. It's a lot of money, but the investment that you're going to make into yourself is going to come back to you, tenfold over your lifetime and over your career. So, study. Read, pick up trade mags, do whatever you can to sharpen your skills and become a better shooter, because that, I think, is what's going to elevate you above the others in your area, probably get more of the work, and get you on a platform where people are going to say, that's the guy I want to hire. That's the guy that I need to have on my shoot, even if I have to fly him in from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada.
Cool, man.
Set yourself up. Well, we'll let you go, my man, and we're going to finish up a few things. No, you got to go. You're right on the money for needing to get out of here. So thank you so much, and have an amazing day, and keep rocking. So
hey, thanks so much. Talk to you guys soon.
Thanks, Dave.
See you, Dave. Thanks, buddy.
Bye.
All right. Rock and roll. Rock and roll.
Good show, man. Good show.
That was a great call, and you know, lots of great information for you guys. And so a couple things, you know, again, I'm going to say if you guys are new to the calls here today, a couple things for you guys to keep in mind that are pretty awesome. You can go to the archives page here on expertinterrogations.com, see all the old calls, and below the call, you can see a transcription. So you'll see a timestamp of every single question that was asked during the call, the links that were discussed in the chat, and it's all right there, so you can go right to that question in the call, so you don't have to watch the whole call if you don't want to, or you don't have time for it. We know a lot of you guys don't have a lot of time, so that's really helpful. And there's also an audio download. And then on top of that, if you guys will suggest an expert, if you have anybody you'd like to see on here, that'd be very helpful. Also on the Expert Interrogations website, you'll see right above the call, there's a giveaway for a GoPro camera. It's the white edition. We'll give that away at the end of the month on one of the future calls we'll announce. Get on the email list, and we'll basically update you when that's going to happen, and we'll let you know of all the future calls. But we truly appreciate you guys being on here. And on the screen right now is the Create Insights coaching. We have a free trial. If you guys are loving this and you find this very helpful, every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, Eastern Standard Time, actually, we do a call just like this on Spreecast. We have a great community in there, lots of awesome stuff happening. And what's cool, guys, is I want to actually mention this for future expert calls and for anybody who's an insider. We usually allow you to go and email us your question to info@createinsights.com. We queue it up, we answer it, then we email you back where we answered that question, so you can go right to that timestamp of your question. But you can actually, I've just found it out, which is pretty cool, the submit a question button right below myself right now is always available on all the calls. So as soon as we put our page up for our next expert, let's say, guys, you can't be on one of our calls and you're really bummed out that you can't get on the call live, because we know that not everybody can make it on the calls, and we hope you become busy. But if you can't make a call, you can email us, info@createinsights.com, to our amazing assistant, and she'll email you back. But if you use the submit a question button before the call is live, it'll actually still load that to the queue days, weeks, whatever in advance, so we can answer that question live, and you can go back and watch the replay of the call, so that, you know, we know you guys can't always make the calls. We know you're busy. We know time's of the essence. And so if you can't do that, email us or submit a question so you can still benefit from your question being answered, even though you can't make the call live. So that's about all I got right this second. I just appreciate you all being on here. We really want to make sure that you guys, you know, grow as video professionals, and we know there's a huge hole in the industry for people helping do that. So we appreciate you guys being here. The biggest thing you can do for us is share this with your friends, with your colleagues, on forums, on groups, whatever you can do to help spread the word about this call if you found it valuable. So, Chris, if you want to add anything.
That's it, man. Guys, we're committed to doing this. We've been in it over a year now. I think Michael and I started talking back in January of 2012, and you know, we're making it happen. And we think that there's a huge hole in the industry. There's too many people that are, you know, not being able to make a good living. You know, you've got amazing skills. You have incredible, you know, talent. You're personable. I mean, you've got all of the, you know, all of the ingredients kind of floating around. You just need help pulling it together. Michael and I have, you know, figured out how to do that on a lot of levels, and that's why we're trying to sort of give back and help people, you know, in the form of that coaching program and some other online courses that we have and we'll be rolling out soon. So, but seriously, guys, I know, you know, I don't know what else to say. I mean, there's an opportunity to get complete access to just about everything we're doing, you know, for 30 or for nothing. I mean, free access right now for 30 days to, you know, that's 4 2-hour coaching calls, you know, download all the stuff on the back end and just see if you like it. And then if you do like it, you know, the monthly fee is cheaper than probably just about anything else you're paying for per month right now anyway. So might not be that way for long, but, you know, definitely think you guys should check it out.
Rock and roll. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks.